Hey guys, today we're going to do a quick look inside of a racing 4-speed. I've been asked a lot about it, so we're just going to dive into it today and give you a quick look at it, what the transmission is that I run, how it works, and what makes it function so well, and what makes it purpose-built for racing applications. Let's get into it.
I'd say it's a nut job.
Now, first off, what I run is specific to my car. But anyone could run this transmission. Now, let me explain what I mean. I had this transmission here I run is a Hightower 4-speed. It's got a tag right on the side of it. I'll show it to you in a minute. It's a Hightower 4-speed. Very much similar to a Jericho, if you've heard of that one, G-Force. There's a lot of companies out there that make this style transmission. Now, what I say by it specific to my application is I had this transmission built by Johnny Hightower. I chose that at the time because he is located not far from me. I could physically go to his shop. We could sit down, talk about what I wanted, and I could physically pick it up. Now, G-Force South is fairly close, but at the time I was not familiar with them or knew where they were. I have no idea where Jericho is. I've never spoke to a representative from Jericho. So this one needs cleaned up. Every time I do any work to the car, I take the transmission out, I clean it and inspect it. I have not done any of that yet this time. We're going to kind of look at it together. I have been running this transmission in this car since late 2018, early 2019. So this transmission has a lot of passes on it. And every time I open it up, it still looks like brand new. Lord willing, when we open it up this time, it's still going to look like brand new. I have beat on this transmission for about 6 years, and it has performed absolutely flawless. I love this thing. If finances would afford, I would buy a second one for a backup, but like everything else in the world, they're not getting cheaper. Everything's going up, but his costs of everything's going up. So let's take a look at a few of the things on the outside that are different from your standard transmission. Now, these are built like a Ford top loader in appearance. So if you look at this transmission, other than the fin aluminum top, you could put a flat top on it and do a few things, and it would look very much like a Ford top loader. Let's take a good look around it. Here's the tag I was talking about, made by Johnny Hightower. Right there. Proudly, it says proudly made in the USA, proudly made in South Carolina. Nothing special here. Of course, it does have the fin top on it. Here's where it is a little different. Of course, we've got the Ford pattern, but it's also dual patterned. Some of your aftermarket scatter shields, blow-proof bell housings have different holes in them, so these are drilled to accept any of them. Here's where it differs. This is the Ford top loaders run like a 18 spline. You can get them in 2 different spline counts, but for the sake of this, I try to keep things simple so everybody can understand it. But let's say an 18 spline count. This is more of a Chevrolet style input shaft, so it is a Chevrolet input shaft. Has a lot more splines on it, which makes it stronger because there's more splines. Now, the way I run this is I run the Ford pressure plate, Ford throwout bearing, all that's Ford, but then I run a Chevy disc. Again, I run a Ram Red Hat setup, and Ram already knows that pretty much all aftermarket transmissions run this just because it's a beefier spline count, so they know pretty much all of them run this. so they automatically know what you want. But if you're trying to piece this together on your own, Ford pressure plate, Ford throwout bearing, and then a Chevy clutch disc, no problems. Also, you need the diameter for your pilot bearing to be Chevrolet as well. One of the things I inspect when I look at these is to make sure that all of these are still straight. On this one it does. There's a little shiny spot right there where something's on it. But these are still good and straight. You can tell where the clutch disc rides right through here, but they're all good and straight. There's nothing bent. So we're good to go there. There's no cracks here, no damage here. One of the things I look at all the time. And I've got to clean this up because all this is just corrosion from being in the car. This is all aluminum. One of the other things that differ, well, let's first talk about what's the same. This is still an H pattern shifter. Now you can run an inline shifter. I prefer the H pattern. I'll get into that in a second. But from the Ford factory, the top loaders would have been set against here. This is spaced out, and it's spaced out so we can run these long aluminum tubes with heim joints on each end to make adjustability just effortless. Also, these do not flex. The factory metal rods that come out and do all these kinks and turns to make this work, when you bang gears, those rods will flex, which means it could not go all the way in. These have no choice. There's no flex in these. They are straight in line, and they're big and beefy, but they're threaded on both ends. Left-hand thread, right-hand thread, which means that you can pop these jam nuts loose and you can make fine little adjustments by barely turning this and get your shift pattern lined up perfect. I'll explain in a second why that's very, very important. And it runs a gigantic input shaft. Again, just to make this thing ultra strong. And I like to look at these as well. Those look absolutely flawless. All right, I'll open the top of this up in just a second and show you the gears in it and show you why this thing is absolutely a work of art. But first off, the shifter. I want to talk about that. A lot of guys will run an inline shifter. That's fine if you're used to that, number one, because you forward back, just like rowing. And or running a handsaw, just forward and back, and that's fine if you're used to that. There's a couple of issues with that I'll go into in a second, but I prefer the H pattern shifter. One, I run a stock Ford, I run a stock Hurst shifter, rod and handle and all. I run a factory Ford style knob, so it looks very correct. Also, a lot of places, if you want to go racing, when it comes to stick shift classes, they're kind of the Wild West, and really one of the only rules they have is H pattern shifter. So this makes me legal anywhere. Technically, with the wiring that we just done that you've seen in the other videos and all, this car is street legal, which means with this setup, I can run this car in daily driver classes if I want to. Stick shift classes. This car fits multiple classes now. But this one here, if you'll look at it, and I'll try to remember to show again, it's got a real heavy spring down here at the bottom. You hold it over to you when you go into first. When you go into second, you lay your hand on the side of the shifter and you can go straight back. When you go into third, all you've got to do is just reach back there and bump the back of the knob, and it will go straight into third. And then you can do the same thing, just smack the knob, it'll go straight back into fourth. It works as good, in my opinion, as an inline shifter, because I feel as though I'm pushing straight forward to go from second to third because it's got such a heavy spring in it that it makes that transition. In order for that to work like it should, that's where the adjustment on these rods come in to fine tune that so that it can bang, bang, bang and be there. This one does have, this is a old school style shifter, old school Hurst style shifter. This one does have the the lockout for the reverse where you push down on the shifter and go into reverse. So it does have that. Also, my biggest issue with the inline shifter, and a lot of people will argue this point, and I understand where they're coming from. I'm saying my issue is if I want to street drive this car, you can drive it like a normal 4-speed. Boop, boop. You get to want to make a turn, just push up, downshift, hit your gear. With an inline shifter, you're either rowing up or rowing down. You can't just, in a way, you can go from, say, fourth to second, but you got to boom, 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 boom. You know, it lift up on the handle, roll it over. It adds a whole lot extra to it. Where this, it feels more natural. You don't have to think about it, I guess is what I'm saying. You just kind of click, click, and go. I like it better. It rows the gears just as fast, in my opinion. I like it better. And it gives you that natural, real, kind of stock feel when you're driving it. And appearance, it appears to be a stock-ish Ford top loader. I'll show you in a minute why we couldn't do the next thing I'm going to talk about, but these gears are so massive in here. Our original plan when I sat down with Johnny was we were going to actually take a factory top loader, dump all the guts out, mill a little out on the inside, and put all of his guts in a factory top loader so you couldn't tell the difference. Several reasons we didn't do that. One, it would have gotten very expensive. But two, after doing some looking and measurements, by the time he took enough material off of that stock top loader case, it would have been paper thin. So there would have been a real risk of that case breaking. So let's take a look at these gears, and I'll show you why this thing shifts so well and why I say that a good racing style transmission can rival an automatic. A lot of people don't think a manual can keep up with automatic. I say it can if you have the proper transmission. You're not going to do it with your old T10 or your old top loader or rock crusher or whatever you have. But with something like this, I honestly believe you can. And I mean, I'm pretty snappy with them banging them gears. Let's take a look inside this. So the top of this thing is held on with 10 Allen head bolts. But when you see, if you've ever seen the gears inside a transmission, when you see the gears that are inside this thing, it is definitely going to be mind-blowing. I'll see if I can't dig up a picture on the internet, a stock photo of an inside of a top loader, and show you what they look like. Super lightweight. I like to take a look at everything. Everything is steel. This thing is steel like brand new in here. Six years, people. And it is absolutely just amazing at how nice it is inside. All right, first off, let me see if I can find a stock photo of some gears and put them in here. You will see that the gears are physically half, and that's legit, half the size of the gears that I'm about to show you. So here you are. This is inside a performance-based transmission. First off, look how thick the case is, and this is the entire case. It is that thick. This is aluminum. It is not crazy heavy, but the case is super thick. Look at how clean and nice these gears are after all those passes, and it's never been touched up. Now, some of the things that you will notice if you compare to the old transmission versus this one, or to a stock transmission versus this one, it's kind of the opposite of this. Here we went with more teeth because they're taller and gives us more strength here. Here, you have way less teeth, but these teeth are massive teeth. I mean, they are uh, they're that deep. They are massive, massive teeth. Now, they also don't have synchronizers. They have these dog bone style gears in here instead of those little tiny synchronizers. There's a reason for that. There's also a reason why, if you look at a stock one, the gears are kind of angled. They're kind of triangle shaped. If you look at these are all what they refer to as straight cut gears. There's reasons behind that. But look at how clean all this stuff is. It's like brand new in here. Now, some of the terms that I spoke about, if you look at, again, if you go back and look at that stock photo, there's little pieces in there that look like gold or brass. Those are synchronizers. That, and again, I know a lot of you guys know, and you don't crucify me on terms and stuff because you guys know what the proper terms are. I'm trying to talk to people that may not understand some of those words and what they mean, so I'm trying to put them into words that everyone can understand. So just follow along that train with me. Get on board the layman's terms or the everyday term train with me for a second. So those synchronizers allow you to go down the road, and when you shift, it makes the shift. You push your clutch in, and those synchronizers have a bunch of teeth so that when you match the gears, they can kind of come in here together. You know, it's nice kind of catch and roll that gear kind of thing. It allows for a smooth, gentle shift. These have dog bone, straight cut gears and all that. The difference is at 7, 8, 9, even 10,000 RPMs, if you tried to shift a modern transmission, it's going so fast, those little fine teeth just slam into each other and cause chaos. They just shear off because they are a brass, a gear made of brass to make it a smooth shift. They can't handle that. Even if you could get it to shift into that, a lot of times you can't, just because they won't find a home at that speed because they're so close together. Now you look at that on the other end, and instead of these teeth like this that are real close together trying to find each other, and you do this, and at 7,000 or 8,000 RPM, they got no choice but to find each other. There's so much space between them. They're so deep and so big, they just kind of clunk. Which is why with a lot of these transmissions, when you first shift one, it kind of gives you a spooky feeling because you do hear a clunk, clunk. You do get that kind of clunk when you shift gears. You feel it and you hear it, but you understand that's just because there's this massive amounts of space in there to make these gears come together at 7,000 or 8,000 RPMs. Also, with these dog bones, straight cut gears and everything, I don't do it. Not really, but you can shift these transmissions without the clutch. These are more clutch assisted than clutch required. And here's what I mean by this. So they make versions of these transmissions that are called clutchless. Clutchless transmissions, you do not touch the clutch. You use the clutch when you put it in first or when you go to reverse, but after you put it in first, you drive off and you just bang, bang, bang. Those are a little tougher to drive on the street because you got to bang them in the gear. This is more of a clutch assisted, but it's that this transmission is that borderline. All you've got to do is unload it just enough to take the pressure off the input shaft. So in theory, I think I have a video, and I'll put it in after this if I do still have it. In theory, you don't have to use the clutch other than when you leave. All you got to do is, it's hard to explain. You don't lift and go back on, and you don't lift and go in the clutch or none of that. All you've got to do is wiggle your gas pedal just enough so that you're not putting forward pressure on it, and you can just bang the next gear. Now, I don't shift like that. The way I shift and what works for me is I mat this bitch to the floor. I never take my foot off the floor. I dig my toenails into the floorboard of this car like a monkey reaching for a banana. I just clutch on, and I am locked in. What I do is I have my clutch pedal set so it releases about that far from the top, and I just take my foot and I don't even push it. I just take my foot and bump up against it just enough to release that pressure, enough where I bang the next gear. I never lift. By doing that, you will see on your tack, if you pay attention, you really don't lose. Earlier when I mentioned that this transmission was built for this car, these gears you see in here were selected based off of this car, based off the weight of the car at the time, the rear gear I was running and all that. He set me up with a proper first, second, third, and fourth. Well, fourth is 1-to-1, but first, second, third gear to make this car perform at its best. I don't do a very good job explaining the shifting part. It's one of those things I kind of have to show you, and you kind of have to understand, you kind of have to learn it. But what I will say is that I believe that a transmission like this, or a clutchless transmission, can be as fast as an automatic any day. But I also believe with all my heart that when people talk about that, they're not thinking about the numbers. And if you've got, just a random number, an automatic that runs 550s, if you've got a stick shift car that runs 550s, 550s is 550s. You know what I'm saying? There's going to be debate on that, and that's fine. Everybody's got to write their opinion. I'm not the guy that's trying to convince you my opinion's better than yours. We all have different opinions. When it comes down to it, how fast your car is with a stick shift depends on how good you are at your job. It's not the transmission, it's how good you are at your job. That is going to offend a lot of people. That's going to make a lot of people mad. But at the end of the day, there's guys out there way better than me that you hear them go down a track and you'll swear that guy's running automatic in that car. Because all you hear is, wah. I mean, you would swear they're running automatic. Me, I'm not quite that good. I'm getting there. It takes years to be as good as those guys. I'm very much a creature of habit. When I find something I like that works, there may be 10 things out there that's better than it. I won't know because I find something I like and I'll latch into that thing. I love this Hightower transmission. I have heard nothing but good things about G-Force. I believe G-Force probably makes one every bit as good. I cannot swear to that firsthand. I've heard good stuff about Jericho's. Those are really the only ones I know anything about. I know there's companies out there like TKX or something, and maybe American Powertrain. I don't know if they just sell stuff or they make them. I really don't know much about those. Can't tell you anything about them. What I can tell you is these 4-speeds like this are absolutely phenomenal. And you can, despite what people tell you, this particular transmission right here, I can speak only to the Hightower because I only know the Hightower. These transmissions are streetable. They are very streetable. But you need to drive them. I don't want to use the terms drive them like you're mad at them because people take that the wrong way. You need to be a little aggressive when you drive them. You can't be sitting there, riding around at 35 mile an hour and just push the clutch in, wait 17 minutes to downshift or whatever, because they will kind of clunk and be clunky or whatever. These transmissions are made to boom, boom, get it. What I'm saying is get it in there. Where a lot of people, when they're driving down the road, they get up here and that's not what these are made to do. These are made to boom, boom. I mean, get it in gear. But you can upshift, you can downshift, you can do anything you want to do. It will work, but you got to get it in there. I'll tell you exactly what Johnny Hightower told me when he built this transmission for me. He said, "Have you had one of these before?" I said, "No, sir, I have not." He said, "What do you shift at?" And I told him, I said, "With the current motor I'm running, I shift at 7,000. He said, okay, when you get to 7,000 and it's time to shift, you follow me? I said, yes, sir. He said, at 7,000 RPM, when you move this shifter, it's going to go where you put it, and it's going to go there effortlessly. He said, now understand what I'm saying. It's going to go where you put it. If you go from second to third, it's going to go from second to third. If you go from second to first, it's going to go from second to first. It's going to go where you put it. So make sure you put it where you want it, because you can destroy this. But as you see, after 6 years of beating the living guts out of this thing, 4,000-pound car, doing wheelies, banging gears, this thing still looks like brand new. I'm a big fan of these. Big fan of these. And I tell you what, I got a lot of friends that's got the G-Forces, and they'll say the same thing about the G-Force. So either one of those I feel confident about. The Jericho, I've heard some people running them. Not really ever heard anything bad about them, but I can't tell you anything about the Jericho because I don't have any firsthand knowledge of them. These I have the most knowledge of. The Hightower T, I love them. I think they're bulletproof. The G-Forces, I have a lot of friends that run them, and they would say the exact same thing about the G-Force, that they're just as bulletproof. I can't tell you personally, but I haven't heard anything bad about them. So I would say a Hightower or a G-Force is going to be one of your best bets when it comes to something like this. But these things are absolutely phenomenal. Before I go, though, I am going to show you that gigantic rear. Now, a couple things you have to have when you run one of these. One, you have to have a good quality shifter. Good quality shift rods. We covered that. You're going to have a larger slip yoke, input joint, whatever you want to call it, whatever term you want to use. You're going to have a larger one. I run a Mark Williams. At the time I built this, I chose the Mark Williams simply because Johnny had some in stock. And after I chose it, I talked to a lot of people, and they're like, "Yeah, those are up here. That's probably as good as you could have got if that's what you wanted." So you're good with that. But it runs 1350 joints. So, and you're going to have to upgrade your drive shaft a little bit. You're going to have anytime you build a performance vehicle, you need to carry that power downstream to your next component. Build a hotter engine, I need a better transmission to hold what I put in there. When you put it here, now this is going to hold it, and it's not going to give up on you. Now that's the drive shaft. Now you need a beefier drive shaft. Then you got to have a good rear end. I tell you what, I've never broken this transmission, knock on aluminum. I've never broken this transmission, but I have broke the rear end in this car 3 times. First time I snapped an axle. No, I broke the rear end in this car twice. First time I snapped an axle. The second time I snapped the input on the pinion. I'll tell a story later on the pinion. That was a bad casting. There was actually a heat fracture in it. Talked with the manufacturer. We sorted that out. The axles, well, that was all me. But these transmissions are rock solid. I know I probably didn't cover everything. It's probably some stuff I didn't think about because it's so second nature to me. But if anyone has any questions about this, drop them in the comment. If anybody wants to ask anything about this or want to know any more information about this transmission, drop it in the comments, or stick shift racing in general. Drop it in the comments. I will do the best I can to answer those questions. Just wanted to make a quick video today. Today's Sunday. I don't really do much on Sundays other than go to church. We reserve Sunday for family time and church time. So I just wanted to do a quick video on this because I have had a lot of people ask about the transmission. Yes, it does have the top loader appearance, but it is very much different than a top loader. God bless each and every one of you. If you have not yet subscribed, please consider doing that. It would mean a lot to me and my family to keep us moving forward. Thumbs up, likes, all comments, all that good stuff. Share the video with friends. That helps too. God bless you, each and every one of you. I'm so thankful for you. I hope the Lord blesses you today more than did yesterday, and we'll see you on the next one.
I'd say he's a nut job.